Welcome to this deep dive. We're exploring The Art of Possibility by Rosamund Zander and Benjamin Zander. It's a book that really gets you thinking differently.
It's more about shifting perspective than just giving self-help tips. It's like they've taken these big philosophical ideas and turned them into something you can actually use.
Right, and the stories they tell are so engaging, from conducting to teaching to business.
Exactly. They really bring these concepts to life.
One that grabbed my attention immediately was, it's all invented. The idea that we essentially create our own realities. But then how often do we limit ourselves without even realizing it?
Oh, all the time. They use that analogy of the 9-dot puzzle, you know?
The one where you have to connect all the dots with 4 straight lines?
Yeah. Most people get stuck because they assume they can't draw outside the imaginary square formed by the dots.
A self-imposed restriction?
Exactly. And that's how so many of our mental boundaries work. We create these limits in our minds that don't actually exist.
Like in that story they tell about the student who accidentally received an A?
And the teacher regretted it, wanting to teach the student a lesson about being prepared.
Showing how even good intentions can sometimes limit possibilities.
For sure. Makes you think how often we miss out on something amazing because we're so attached to how we think things should be.
Which brings us to their comparison of the world of measurement and the universe of possibility.
Right. The world of measurement is all about competition and scarcity. Always evaluating, always striving.
Exhausting.
And the universe of possibility focuses on abundance, contribution, and connection, finding the joy in it all.
Like switching from I have to win to how can we all succeed together?
Exactly. And their practice of giving an A is a great example of that.
It's not about ignoring performance, but about focusing on potential.
Like those letters written by the trombonist and the Korean flutist, imagining their future success.
And it seemed to ignite their passion just by envisioning their dreams.
It's like they were already living those dreams. And then they talk about this inner conflict between the calculating self and the central self.
That calculating self, so focused on survival, always strategizing.
We develop it as a way to get through childhood.
But if we let it dominate us as adults, we miss out on so much connection.
The central self emerges when we realize we've survived, allowing our giving nature to flourish.
Like that story of the homeless man offering all his possessions to buy someone a meal.
What an illustration of generosity that goes beyond calculation.
It makes you wonder how we can tap into that central self more often.
It's a question worth exploring.
And their practice of being present to the way things are seems key.
Accepting reality, even the parts we don't like, without resistance.
Instead of fighting against it, acknowledging it fully.
They even talk about switching but for and to shift your perspective. Like if you're on vacation in Florida and it's raining.
Instead of it's raining, but I'm trying to have fun, it's raining and I'm going to make the most of it.
Exactly. That slight change in wording can make a big difference.
Or like if you're skiing and hit a patch of ice.
Yeah.
Getting angry doesn't help, but accepting it allows you to adapt.
They also talk about recognizing downward spiral talk, those negative thought patterns that can trap us.
It's so easy to get stuck in those.
And they advocate for replacing it with a language of possibility.
Focusing on what we can do, what we can create, instead of what's holding us back.
And this ties in with their metaphor of the silent conductor.
A whole new way of thinking about leadership.
Not about control, but about empowering others to reach their full potential.
Like that story of Eugene Lehner, the violinist from the Boston Symphony.
An incredibly skilled musician, but never given the opportunity to conduct.
Then there's that other story, where a conductor let a young violinist conduct during rehearsal.
Can you imagine?
What an experience for that violinist, and what a testament to the conductor's belief in his potential.
It's a beautiful illustration of stepping back and allowing others to shine. And speaking of shining, their next concept is giving way to passion.
Embracing that flow of energy that connects us to something larger than ourselves.
Rosamund describes this incredible experience with a rushing river. She felt this sense of interconnectedness with nature's raw power.
It seemed to awaken something deep within her.
And in the world of music, it's about surrendering to the emotion behind the notes. Like that story of the tenor, Jeffrey,
who was so focused on showcasing his vocal technique that he missed the heart of the music.
Only when he let go of his ego and embraced vulnerability did he truly move the audience.
That's powerful.
So from giving way to passion, we transition to the practice of enrollment.
Now this is intriguing. Tell me more about this enrollment.
It's about seeing people as invitations to collaborate, to create something together.
Instead of just transactional interactions.
Like they share that example of turning a frustrating experience at an air pump into a moment of connection.
A flat tire, missing quarters, yet it became an opportunity for genuine interaction.
And then there's that story of turning a potentially chaotic event with school children into a shared musical experience.
Even amidst the chaos, the belief in those children's potential unlocked something magical.
It speaks to the transformative power of faith in others. Now, being the board is a concept that really challenges our usual understanding of responsibility.
Tell me more about this being the board idea. Sounds fascinating.
It suggests that we're not just players in the game of life, but we're the game board itself. We're responsible for the circumstances we find ourselves in.
Even when things go wrong.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership without blaming others. Like in that car accident analogy, a drunk driver causes a crash, but the other driver still has a choice in how they respond.
So instead of dwelling on the unfairness, it's about asking, how did this get on my board? And what can I do now?
Exactly. It's about focusing on what we can control, which is our own response. Like that conductor who reframed a musician's mistake during a performance as a learning opportunity.
It's about turning challenges into opportunities for growth.
And it reminds me of that story about Cora, the violist. She felt mistreated by the conductor. But instead of forcing her to stay, he took responsibility and apologized.
And she ended up coming back. It shows that taking ownership, even when it's difficult, can lead to unexpected positive outcomes. And then we move into frameworks for possibility.
Expanding our worldview, harnessing the power of vision.
Like Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech.
A powerful articulation of a desired future not limited by present circumstances.
And they use HP's transition from a mission statement to HP for the world as another example.
A vision that ignited a sense of purpose and passion within the company.
And they outline a 3-step process for creating and living within these frameworks.
First, declare yourself. Identify and consciously replace limiting self-talk with an expansive new framework.
Entering the territory comes next. Embodying this new distinction, aligning actions with the chosen framework.
And finally, keep distinguishing, continually evaluating whether thoughts and actions match the framework and redirecting when needed.
Like that teacher who shaved her head when a student lost hair due to chemo.
Reframing difference into possibility, creating an inclusive environment.
Or during that Brazil tour, when students broke curfew, the conductor didn't punish them.
Instead, he sparked a conversation about their vision for the trip, redirecting their energy towards a shared purpose.
And lastly, we have telling the WE story.
Moving beyond an us versus them mentality and recognizing our interconnectedness.
Shifting from I or they to we.
Exactly. Like Walter Zander, who shared both Jewish and Arab history with equal enthusiasm.
A student remarked on the wonderful opportunity for those people to share that land and history.
A glimpse into the power of shared narratives.
And then there's the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Choosing forgiveness and unity over retribution. Victims and perpetrators sharing stories, acknowledging the past, and envisioning a shared future.
Powerful stuff. Before we move on, let's pause for a moment and consider, what are some of the key takeaways that have resonated with you so far?
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. What has stood out for you in this exploration?
It's all invented. Really got me thinking. It's amazing how much power we have to shape our own experiences.
It really is eye-opening, and the Zanders offer so many practical ways to actually apply these ideas.
There's one story I found particularly fascinating about a leadership lesson disguised as a simple question.
During an orchestra rehearsal, Benjamin Zander, the conductor, turns to a violinist.
Okay.
He asks, "Would you be willing to lead the orchestra while I observe from the back of the hall?"
Wow. That's a bold move. Imagine being that violinist.
This wasn't just any violinist, though. It was Eugene Linner, a seasoned musician who had been with the Boston Symphony Orchestra for over 40 years.
He must have been incredible.
He was, and he had a deep understanding of the music, yet he'd never been given the chance to conduct.
To have that opportunity after all those years, what a recognition of his expertise.
It really shows that Zander believes leadership can emerge from anywhere within the orchestra.
Challenging those traditional hierarchies.
It perfectly embodies the concept of the silent conductor, a leader who empowers others.
A leader who steps back and allows others to shine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a powerful metaphor that applies to all areas of life, not just music.
I can see that. Now, Let's shift gears for a moment and explore a concept that might seem counterintuitive in our achievement-oriented society.
The idea of being a contribution.
Being a contribution. Interesting. You mean focusing on making a difference for others rather than personal gain?
That's the essence of it. It's about shifting the question from what's in it for me to how can I contribute to those around me?
I like that.
The Zanders even introduced this fun little exercise called the dinner table game.
The dinner table game. Okay, tell me about this.
Imagine you're having dinner with loved ones. The usual conversations, good food. But this time, you decide to play this game where your only goal is to be a contribution to each person at the table.
To make their experience better in some way.
Exactly. How can you bring them joy? How can you make them feel seen and appreciated?
A sincere compliment, truly listening to their stories. Those little things can make such a difference.
The book suggests that even trying this for one meal can create a positive shift in the entire dynamic.
Because it reminds us that our actions, no matter how small, have a ripple effect on those around us.
And this concept is beautifully illustrated through the story of Sarah, a woman living in a nursing home.
It's easy to feel limited in those environments.
Right.
What did Sarah do?
Well, Benjamin Zander was visiting the nursing home, sharing music with the residents, and Sarah decided to move from the 5th row to the 4th.
Seems like a simple act, but I'm guessing it meant more than that.
In that context, it was a bold statement, a refusal to give in to her limitations. Zander shared her story to inspire other residents to consider their own contributions, no matter their circumstances.
It's a reminder that we always have a choice in how we respond to our situation.
Being a contribution isn't about grand gestures, it's about the intention behind our actions.
I love that.
Now, how about we dive into the power of reframing our perceptions? There's this story that comes to mind, 4 men and their dying father.
The title itself evokes so much. Loss, family bonds.
It's about 4 brothers facing their father's impending death, each dealing with their own grief and their relationships with each other and their father. One brother was particularly struggling.
No way.
He was filled with anger and resentment toward his father, focused on perceived shortcomings and injustices.
It's not uncommon for those feelings to surface during times of loss.
He felt unseen by his father, like his siblings were favored, and this created tension within the family.
It's heartbreaking.
Zander suggested they try reframing the situation. Instead of dwelling on the negatives, what if they focused on their father's contributions to their lives?
To see the good, even amidst the complexities.
And as they began exploring this new perspective, they started recalling specific moments when their father had made a positive impact.
Without denying the challenges, but choosing to focus on the positive.
One remembered learning to ride a bike. Another, how his father encouraged his artistic talents. As they shared these memories, the atmosphere shifted.
From anger to gratitude. It's incredible how much power our perspective holds.
It reinforces this idea of being a contribution. Our impact extends beyond what we do to how we perceive and frame things.
Even in difficult relationships, there are hidden gifts and opportunities for growth.
Now let's venture into a realm often fraught with intense emotions, the Arabs and the Jews.
A complex and sensitive topic. How does the art of possibility approach such a charged issue?
By encouraging a shift from the divisive us versus them to the unifying power of YE.
Recognizing that we're all interconnected, regardless of our differences.
The book features Walter Zander, Benjamin's father, who was a passionate advocate for peace between these two cultures.
His work is truly inspiring.
He embodied this through his storytelling. He would share both Jewish and Arab history with equal enthusiasm.
Instead of focusing on the conflict, he highlighted their shared heritage and contributions.
He traced their lineage back to Abraham, emphasizing their common roots. And his stories resonated deeply with people, planting seeds of understanding and cooperation.
That's beautiful.
It challenges us to seek the we, even in the most entrenched conflicts. Telling the WE story doesn't mean ignoring the injustices of the past. It's about recognizing our shared humanity beneath those layers.
It's about building bridges instead of walls.
And let's explore how this plays out in personal relationships through the story of Rosamund and her sister.
I imagine the loss of their mother brought up some unresolved issues. Sibling relationships can be complicated.
They were stuck in this cycle of blame and resentment, each holding on to their own version of events. And Rosamund's attempts to address it directly only made things worse.
Sometimes our efforts to fix things can backfire, especially when we're focused on being right.
It was a classic case of I versus you, each sister entrenched in her own narrative.
Unable to see the other's perspective.
But then, Rosamund had this realization. Her focus on her own perspective was actually perpetuating the separation she was trying to heal.
So she shifted from I to we. She focused on their shared experience as sisters, united by their love for their mother.
And as she embraced this telling the WE story approach, the dynamic between them transformed.
From blame to understanding.
It shows the healing power of shared narratives. It reminds us that we're not defined by our differences, but by the bonds that connect us.
We're stronger together.
And let's delve into this idea of no human enemy, particularly through that therapy session with a couple dealing with infidelity.
It's a situation filled with so much pain and betrayal.
The wife's rage was palpable, directed at her husband. But Rosamund observed something interesting. Her anger wasn't just about her husband, there was something deeper at play. She called it the revenge creature.
Revenge creature. Like her anger had taken on a life of its own.
By giving it a name, Rosamund helped the wife see her anger as something separate from herself, something she could choose to engage with or not.
So she could reclaim her power.
Exactly. It reminds us that intense emotions can sometimes stem from past wounds, not just the present situation. And by recognizing those patterns, we can free ourselves from their grip.
And it's about compassion, even for those who've hurt us.
It reinforces this idea that there is no human enemy. We're all interconnected, even in the midst of conflict.
It's challenging, especially when we've been deeply wounded, but it opens the door to healing and reconciliation.
And telling the WE story doesn't mean condoning the hurtful actions. It means recognizing our shared humanity and approaching conflict with a desire for resolution.
Like the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission. They chose a truly remarkable path after the horrors of apartheid.
They prioritized forgiveness and healing over punishment.
Tell me more about their approach.
They created a space for both victims and perpetrators to share their stories, to acknowledge the harm that was done, and to seek forgiveness.
I can't imagine how difficult that must have been for everyone involved.
It was groundbreaking. It showed that justice doesn't have to be about retribution.
It can be about restoring balance and creating a more unified future.
Their work embodies telling the WE story, acknowledging the suffering while framing it within a larger narrative of shared humanity and the possibility of forgiveness.
What a powerful example.
And now, let's shift our focus to a story that highlights the intersection of music, leadership, and the power of possibility.
I love how music has this unique ability to connect people.
It's the story of Sinfonia Rosario, which takes place during the New England Conservatory Youth Philharmonic Orchestra's tour of Argentina.
Sounds like an incredible experience.
It was. During a rehearsal in Rosario, Zander decided to do something different.
Oh.
Instead of leading the orchestra, he stepped back and became the silent conductor.
Empowering the musicians to take ownership.
He encouraged them to reflect on their past performances, explore new interpretations, and share their insights.
What a great way to get them more involved in the music.
And the musicians responded enthusiastically. They were eager to contribute their ideas.
It shows that everyone has valuable insights to offer, regardless of experience. What happened next?
Something extraordinary unfolded. Without planning or rehearsal, the musicians performed the entire first movement of Dvorak's New World Symphony from memory.
Wow. That's not just memorization, that's a deep understanding and embodiment of the music.
Zander described it as a new form of music making, born from a place of shared passion and purpose.
It's like they tapped into a collective energy.
It truly embodies the art of possibility.
Embracing abundance, trusting in each other's talents, and achieving something remarkable together.
It's about shifting from limitations to possibilities, from a judgment to compassion, and from separation to unity.
And speaking of language, let's turn our attention to the powerful role it plays in shaping our thoughts and beliefs. Language is so powerful. It really shapes how we see the world, don't you think?
Absolutely. The Zanders emphasize that throughout the book, how the words we choose have a huge impact on our experience.
They talk about moving away from that limiting language. The buts, shoulds, and can'ts that keep us stuck.
Instead, they encourage using language that opens up possibilities. And how fascinating, what if?
Subtle shifts that can make a world of difference.
From scarcity to abundance, from judgment to curiosity. It all starts with the words we use.
Their idea of giving an A is a great example.
Creating a language of potential. Imagine what it would be like to always be met with that belief in your abilities.
It would be transformative. Our words can truly inspire or discourage. It's a responsibility we all have.
They also talk about the power of articulating a vision, painting a picture with words of the future we want to create.
Shifting our focus from what is to what could be. and doing it with conviction.
And when we articulate that vision, we not only inspire ourselves, but we invite others to join us in making it a reality.
Like that example with HP. Changing their mission statement to HP for the world seemed to infuse the whole company with a new sense of purpose.
It shows that language isn't just about communication, it's about shaping our beliefs and actions. So as we come to the end of our deep dive into the art of possibility, I'm curious, what are some of the biggest takeaways for you?
The idea of empowerment has really struck me. This realization that we're not just passive bystanders, we're active creators of our lives.
That's such a powerful shift.
And this book provides so many practical tools for making that shift. From limitations to possibilities, from scarcity to abundance, from separation to unity.
And those shifts, when we embrace them individually and collectively, can create a world that's more joyful, purposeful, and connected.
It's a reminder that the art of possibility isn't just a theory. It's something we can practice every day in our choices, our actions, and the stories we tell ourselves and others.
Well said. This has been a truly enriching conversation, exploring the power of perspective and the potential that resides within each of us.
Before we wrap up, let's offer our listeners a quick recap of 10 key takeaways from the art of possibility.
A great idea. Let's distill these transformative concepts.
Number 1, it's all invented. Our perceptions shape our reality, so we can choose a more expansive lens.
Number 2, embracing the universe of possibility, shifting from scarcity and competition to abundance and collaboration.
Number 3, giving an A. Believing in ourselves and others, fostering a culture of potential.
Number 4, recognizing the calculating self and the central self, moving beyond fear and embracing our giving nature.
Number 5, practicing being present to the way things are, cultivating acceptance and navigating challenges with grace.
Number 6, replacing downward spiral talk with a language of possibility, shaping our experiences with empowering words.
Number 7, the silent conductor, leading by empowering others and creating space for their brilliance.
Number 8, giving way to passion, tapping into that vital energy and letting it guide our expressions.
Number 9, enrollment, approaching relationships as collaborative journeys of creation.
And number 10, telling the WE story, shifting from division to unity, recognizing our shared humanity.
As we go back out into the world, I encourage you to carry these 10 takeaways with you. Let them guide your choices and shape your experience.
May this exploration inspire you to embrace the art of possibility, not just as a concept, but as a way of life.